you doing, guys? Today we are almost all set to leave for the Wheel Horse show. I just have done a couple other additional things, or started one, I should say, and finished one since the last video. The first thing I did, which is done, is the steering wheel kind of rocked in this direction on the steering shaft. Drove me insane. So what I did was I went ahead, took the steering wheel off, and I took a punch and I just peened the edges over on both sides of the steering wheel to make it a little bit, the diameter a little tighter. Put the roll pin back in, and now my steering wheel is nice and solid. It does rock back and forth like this, but that's just because of the gears, or the gear clash of the steering system. So that's all set. Second thing is I put a GT14 intake on my tractor because I always like the look of the air filter hanging out of the hood. So with that, I have it set up in this direction, or set up in this fashion. The problem is with the longer duration camshaft that I have in this, and it being a 16 horse, this is kind of an air restriction. It doesn't flow air very well. Number one, it's pretty narrow at the inlet, and then there's this 90-degree bend right here that air has to come in, it hits, and then it's really not a good design when it comes to airflow. So I'm going to try to rectify that. So what I've done is I went out to the shed, and I have another GT14 intake, and I've started to port it. So if we take a look on the inside here, this side, as you can see, I have already started to port it, and on this side it is still the rough casting. And when we look down, right down the center of it, you can see that I've actually opened up this side of the intake. So that's basically what I'm going to do, or what I'm going to did. And how I'm doing that is pretty simple. To reach way down inside of the thing, I'm using this sharp file. That actually, you'd be surprised how much material that thing takes off. The rest of it, I'm using my Dremel with its little flex tube, or flex drive shaft, and a sanding drum, and that's how I ported the Magnum engines, is using this right here, and it really works good. As you can see, it takes it down real nice. I've even started to round out the bottom section of it to smooth this all out, so that way the airflow will be nice and smooth. I've been a little bit careful around this section because I do need the threads to mount the air filter. But what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get that thing going. I'm going to start sanding this side down and porting this side of the intake. I'll also do as far as I possibly can down the bottom and the top to get that smooth. And then once I get that done, we'll talk about what we're going to be doing on the back end. With the sanding and filing, and then ultimately using a little Scotch-Brite wheel on my Dremel, this is where I am. You can see how that has been ported pretty nice. It's straight shot right to the back of the intake. I've actually, if I take the light off, I've even really reduced the curve into the intake itself. It's on camera it looks a lot bigger than it is, but really when I get, there you go, when you get right up on it, you can see there is basically nothing there. It's pretty much a straight shot right into the intake. So I'm real happy with that. I think this end and the actual tube runners, you know, the inside of the tube is done. Tomorrow I'm going to start working on this end, and I do have some big plans for this, or I got big engineering plans in my head. Whether or not they come to fruition, we will see. So, all right, guys, we'll work on this tomorrow. It's actually a couple days later, but I am working on the intake. I'm working on the end. I mean, this end here is pretty much all done. I mean, that's pretty much ported out as much as it can be, and it's much bigger than it was. But at this end where it bolts to the carburetor, there is like a real 90-degree shelf all the way around, and it's fairly thick. If I take my finger, you can see that's the edge. I mean, so it's a good, I would say a good 1/4 of an inch, you know, plus this thickness. So you got this edge and then this big round thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start hogging this out and making it all nice and smooth. Now there is a bolt that mounts right here that goes straight through it. I'm really not going to be able to get rid of that. I'm really not going to mess around with that. I'm just going to blend it all. And when I get underneath this, get to this bolt area here, I'm going to go kind of easy, but I am going to make it nice and round. And how am I going to do that? Well, I'm going to use my little sanding drum on my Dremel, and with a little bit of work, this is what it starts to look like. I did do the bottom section here, so I'm going to go from this to this. And I started, you can see how much material I'm removing. And if we look down the hole, you can actually see right there in the bottom, I guess the bottom right corner, you can start to see the blend. So I'm going to go ahead and continue blending this edge out. I'm not going to go too crazy around here. I want to leave a little bit of meat for the mounting, but all of this is going to be disappeared, and all of that in this back section, I'm going to get rid of all that, and then we're just going to blend it all out. I may do something with this back edge because it is a 90-degree back edge, but I'll figure that out after I get done hogging all this out. So after a bunch of grinding with the Dremel, that is how this is looking. You can see I made a nice round edge all the way around. Got rid of that complete 90-degree ledge. And when you actually look down it, I mean, see if I can, I'm going to tip it a little bit so we get some light in there. I mean, that's about as straight of a shot of air. And I think that's more than enough in order to get the air into the carburetor. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to surface these edges. Just a piece of flat steel, a piece of 400, gently sand it, make sure this area is flat. I'm going to do this one right now. And then that is it. This thing is pretty much all done. I think in the next video, hopefully it'll be before the Wheel Horse show, I'll have this thing installed. We'll compare the old one that's on the tractor now to this one before I install it, so we can actually see the difference that I created here, and hopefully it produces some results. I was going to take off this mold line in the back, but I've decided to just leave it. I'm really not going to gain anything off of that, I don't think. But all right, well guys, thank you very much for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment. Anything and everything you do for me helps me, so I'm very appreciative of all that. And as always, until the next video, have a nice day.